flathead.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right.
38 bucks each off. But yeah, so one rocket.
Let's settle down, everybody.
Rowdy?
More? Settle down.
Oh, yeah, got it. Sorry.
Where's that leadership been? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's great.
Welcome to the April regularly scheduled Urban Renewal Agency meeting. It's April 14th, and we will ask our secretary to call the roll, please.
Chairman Porter,
Here.
Commissioner Brooks, not here. Commissioner Warwick,
Here.
Commissioner Doty,
Here?
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Allgood,
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here. Got some business to do tonight. First item is special presentations. I'm not seeing anybody to bring one, so we will move on. Are there any amendments to tonight's agenda?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. We'll strike items 1 and 2 off of old business due to a family emergency.
Due to a family emergency.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. We have that as a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Brings us to public comments where members of the public can address the commission on items of concern that are not part of our agenda tonight. And seeing no one, we will let our secretary check the sign-up sheet. Okay, thank you very much, Angie. Brings us to our consent calendar. Do we have a motion in regards to its disposition?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
I move we approve the consent calendar as noted.
We have a motion by Ms. Warwick. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Mr. Doty. Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Doty,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Allgood,
Yes.
Commissioner Cole,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter.
Yes. Okay, this brings us to our update reports. The first one from RRC Contractors, Mr. Cooper. And I am not seeing Mr. Cooper present. Has anybody signed in on the Zoom link? Okay. So we have no report from RRC this evening. The second is TS Developments, Mr. Mabon. Welcome.
Chairman, Commissioners, the update is essentially our design review that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but we have our design review in front of you guys. We also have it at the city, but it's kind of pending after this meeting. So essentially, we're ready to go. We just have that design review in front of you, and we're ready for permitting and good to go. And it's kind of a note, the design didn't necessarily have to be reviewed again, but as a matter of just like keeping everybody in the loop, we wanted to make sure that was done. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Sean. Mr. Moore?
Oh,
On.
no, I'm sorry.
Very good. Thank you, Sean.
And then I'll be here if we have questions later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next report is from Base Layer. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. New face. I know Shane is the usually the one up here, but he had heart surgery last week. He was still counting on being here, but something came up Friday that took him to the emergency room, so the plans of being here got canceled, of course.
Well, be sure to give him our best.
You're stuck with me. Sorry. So I did send Stephen a presentation. I don't know if that's up. It's a PowerPoint.
Excuse me, sir, what is your name?
Oh, Miguel Gadi, G-A-D-D-I, last name. So, let's see, I guess the green one? No? No, there we go. So we completed the project, as you know. Some images of the completed project. I thought that was interesting to see because it shows the beginning of that, of that future intersection. And then in the horizon, you can essentially see 44 and the 44 interchange. So that's a clear image of, when this road is built, the amount of land that would get open and how it would activate a significant portion of the urban renewal area. So the reimbursement amount was approved for $624,000 plus. The project was completed for $398,911. So that's a saving of $225,000 or 36%. ITD and city engineering have signed off. All invoices were sent to Raylene at the end of March. And essentially now on this topic, we're waiting authorization and understanding how the process goes from here for Raylene to be able to start reimbursement, of course, when the funds are available, right? But we just want to make sure that, everything is ready to go when funds start pouring in. So if you could please, let us know how that would unfold and what else we need to do, if anything else.
Raylene, that's your department?
I just have a comment on that. Yes, I have received in all the invoices. I apologize because there's been some delays in responding back. But you should be getting an email from me with all of the next steps. The last part of that with the agreement is the annexation into the city before reimbursements can start, so.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. But beyond that, beyond the annexation, condition fulfillment, everything else should be in play, other than the money, to start the reimbursement, correct? Okay, perfect, thanks. No? So in terms of the bigger picture and, where we're hoping to get in the next steps is have some idea of how the network and the infrastructure is going to evolve in the area. This was essentially a proposed functional classification plan outlining the potential connections. The next one is, arrive to a site plan that we can talk to interested parties and users and be able to tell them, yeah, this is the parcel, this is a legal description, this is the specific parcel or the bundle of parcels that you're able to get to fulfill your 5-acre desire or 40-acre desire, right? But we need to be in a place based on circulation utilities and based on parcels to be able to engage at that level with the prospects that we're discussing with right now. So on the planning side, we had a really good meeting with Robin Collins last week. We're pretty hopeful that things are going to be moving quickly and smoothly. We're still discussing some aspect regarding uses. As I said, lot split and lot line adjustments is kind of the next steps that we need to work through with planning. And depending on that, on those steps, that would determine the timeline for the annexation. On the infrastructure, I touched on that already. Roadway and utilities, the project identification and prioritization. We got great information from Rob that produced a month plus ago. Very, very encouraging. Now the question is to start putting more, resources and uncertainty behind that. Not just for us, but I was saying for anybody looking at the area. And maybe an instrument to do that could be a 5-year work plan that's adopted. And funding may change, but at least it just shows a commitment of the urban renewal to get something done, and it's very clear and in the open on what the plan and the sequence would be, and of course funding determination. So on the timeline, those are mainly questions that we have on our mind and questions that we're hoping to get some some guidance or feedback from you.
Thank you, Miguel. Do we have questions for Miguel? Mr. Doty?
I guess, Mr. Chair, I think he's looking for some guidance there. Have we come up with a road plan? Maybe Mr. McDonald's back there, or are we still, I did hear you're still working with, you may want to just come on up, Mr. McDonald, but have we decided where the roads are going? How about that? I heard there might be a little bit of conflict.
Shall we stay and hang by Rob, or, okay?
Sure, yeah.
We'll do this.
Yeah, stay with
Not too close.
Both hands? or-
me. No, too much. Mr. Chairman and Commission, we have put together a plan for many different projects in the north allocation area. And what I've tried to do is divide those projects up per project so that we can separate everything out and see what the cost is for each component of each project. A lot of those projects are regarding the parcel that Miguel is developing. And then we started expanding that out a little bit because there are other projects that are high priority as well. And so we have a plan put forward. I have added some tentative dates or years on when some of those projects could happen, as I see that they should be prioritized. The question at this point really comes down to the funding mechanism, and that's, I think, what we've been working on a little bit to try to figure out how to do that. And I think there's some options, and I don't know if that is coming up later on the.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we're going to talk about that tonight, so
Yeah, okay.
Miguel, it might be good for you to hang around for a little while after your presentation.
But as for the planning, I have continued, it's a living document that I have, and so I have continued to make changes to it, and certainly in the next meeting, I'd be happy to re-present it, or at least make sure it's in the packet so you can kind of see how things are progressing.
And Mr. Gotti, you've seen Rob's proposal
Yes.
over the months, and
Yeah, yeah.
and it fits what you need to develop your.
We met, a couple of months ago, maybe a little bit more, and I really was super encouraging to see that coming back from Rob so quickly with so much detail and what we think in the right sequence to activate. And when I'm talking about that, it's not activate, our property, it's just really to activate the area as a whole. So I think to that point was great, but to Rob's point is, well, now we need to start putting, hanging some meat on the bones. I think the skeleton is fantastic. Now we just need to bring
Right.
it up, I guess. So.
Yeah, and again, we're going to address that tonight in terms of how we fund it. As to the timeline, we have to kind of rely on Rob and see if we can get other projects pushed down his list and raise our projects up his list.
That would be in a city-funded scenario, right? Your comment about some projects
Well,
coming
we
down
would-
and some projects coming up, is that because the funding would be competing against other city-funded projects, or just within the urban renewal?
Yeah, we can't
sphere?
really speculate on that because we don't know which
Okay.
funding mechanism that we would
Okay,
choose
okay.
to use. But we would like to see the area activated sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
And how we get that done is kind of what is in debate right now. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah,
I just had one
Mr. Auger?
quick. In this urban renewal area that we're discussing here, are there any other groundbreaking projects right now, or is this the only one?
Is Stephen on? Okay, all right.
Maverick
is. You're saying specifically in the north?
Right, these guys have a project is going in the North Urban Renewal area. Are there any other projects that are started in this new urban renewal area?
So I guess there's two different types of projects. There's development projects that don't ask for urban renewal funding or haven't gone and contracted with urban renewal, such as Maverick, where we haven't been under agreement yet. But those projects are incoming, and Stephen would know more about those projects. But this is the only current north area obligation under contract that we have currently for the north area.
Okay.
But I could share, Chris, that Stephen is working with a number of other companies that are showing an interest as soon as the annexation happens. and that's going to, in Stephen's mind, and he shared that that's going to trigger a lot of investment and a lot more interest than what we're seeing at this point.
Okay.
So,
It just, the more we get going on, the more increments gonna start, we can start putting towards
Exactly.
these projects.
yeah. Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question for Mr. Gotti. So can you elaborate on what you might have, I mean, without giving away everybody's name and rank and serial number, but what do you have out there that is looking to or waiting to come in to that area, pending everything that you just explained here? Tell us what, and then tell me what you foresee the future being, present
Usually
future.
Shane is a lot more attuned to that because he's
Yeah.
on the brokerage side, but I'll do my best.
Yeah,
There is a 40-acre end user looking very closely at at the area. We have a few exchanges with their brokers, send a lot of information, and I think this is where they want to be. There's another about 20-acre user that would probably, we are estimating about 300 jobs. That's an existing company that's looking to expand in the area. And then there are a few, 10, 5-acre, end users. But again, the challenge that we have until we can accomplish something along these lines or something that we can tell them, okay, here's where you access, here's where your sewer, and this is your 5 acres are going to be here, or your aggregate 40 are going to be, parcel lot, 10 to 22. It's hard to get those conversations, to advance,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
that's what we're seeing, but
Sure.
but the interest is definitely there. What we've done with some is just, okay, you want 5 acres, you got a great project, great company. We cannot tell you what we cannot tell you right now, but we'll bring you along. We're not going to sell from under you. Just hanging here with us. I don't know what 5 acres I can give you right now because there's no legal descriptions and no parcels. But as soon as we get there, we'll take care of you. So that's the best that we can do. Just keep those relationships, going and build the trust.
Yeah.
So when we're ready to execute, the interested parties are still there.
yeah, thank you for
So,
that information,
sure.
and thank you for including the projected jobs
Yeah,
for those areas. I think that's an important part of
Yeah.
that whole thing, so thank you.
sure, no problem.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Miguel.
Okay, thank you.
Our next update report was from 7th and Main, and we are striking that this evening due to a family emergency, and that's tied to number 1 and number 2 in our old business. Moving on to number 5 from Wolfpack Development, Carrie Smith is traveling this afternoon and is going to try to get us a letter in for a report, and is not here to report herself, so. Takes us into our first item of old business, which is actually action item number 3, and that's to consider resolution approving final design for TS development. The Commons. Welcome, Mr. Hilty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. I think, I agree with Sean. This is a bit of a crossing the Ts and dotting the Is effort tonight with this resolution. As you'll recall, last month, there was an adjusted schedule to kind of meet the current projected construction of the project that was approved by the agency. One of the items on that was the approval of the final design. This has been kind of a refreshing project in many ways because this design has been changed very, very little from the original RFP response. So I would recommend approval. It is the same packet that's going before the city for the downtown city district design review requirements. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hilty. Any questions? Not seeing any. Do we have a motion?
Well, I have a question, but for either Sean or Rob McDonald.
Sure.
One of the two, but it has nothing to do with Mr. Hilty.
Sean, why don't we have you come up first? Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, Sean, when I was going over this, what is the plan when you guys close off Arthur Street and the public is coming down 7th to the city hall here and these parking stalls, how do they turn around? I don't see any ball designation or anything like that where they would turn around and leave 7th Street. Have you guys figured out how that's going to function?
Yes, and there's also the possibility that might happen once we get into permitting, where there's kind of like a turnaround there. But on this design, I think what we've discussed with the city, and Rob can correct me if I'm wrong, but let's see, page 3, I think, of this package, they have some parking that's showing, what is it, 6? What is this, 6 right here? Yeah. Where it has some hashed out parking. I think that hashed out parking there is supposed to be part of where they're gonna turn around.
That's going to be part of the turn?
Yeah, I think that's basically
Kind of
why
the
those are
idea.
kind of dashed out like that.
Okay.
But if there needs to be a little bit more down there, it's nothing that we're opposed to or anything like that. It's just, this is kind of where the plan is right now.
Okay.
So if there's a safety concern, obviously there's some room there to kind of take up some of the plaza there and make it work.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay,
Not seeing any.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, do we have a motion in regard to the resolution?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick?
I move we approve the resolution approving the final design for TS development.
We have a motion for approval from Ms. Warwick. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Doty. Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Allgood?
Yes.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes.
And Commissioner Hicks is not here.
Very good. The next item is to select a vendor for the feasibility study on the Genke Urban Renewal Agency site, the site specific. Mr. Hilty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you'll recall from our last meeting, the next step in this process was to get a feasibility study done. We had received a proposal from Accorda Real Estate to do that work, and that was really when this item was placed on the agenda. We thought it would be for approval of that agreement. That was withdrawn late last week. I think staff has been casting about to find out who can do the work. I think, Chairman, you've reached out to Cushing Terrell. I know that there's not a level of comfort with Clearwater, who does a lot of these feasibility studies, and so we're looking for somebody to get plugged in. Again, the hope had been that we would be able to approve that contract tonight. What I guess I think the most logical request is for the commissioners to simply approve staff working with the chairman to find somebody and get them retained and get that project underway, as opposed to soliciting and having a contract wait for the next meeting. So anyway, we thought we had somebody. We're now looking, and I think unless there's interest on the commissioner's side of having a special meeting and having a contract specifically approved by commission vote, if you just authorize the chairman to work with staff and find somebody to do the job, for a price consistent with market rates, that's going to be the quickest way forward. But we need to staff some direction from the commissioners.
Mr. Doty.
Mr. Hildy, do you need a motion on that, or just
Specifically, this was done as an action item so that we could do that. Yeah. Just a motion to instruct staff to go retain services to get a feasibility study done for the Lee Jenke site.
so moved?
Second.
Chris, did you have some other comment to make
Oh,
on that? Okay. Okay. Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Hilty. So I guess I'm a little hesitant to just say, well, let's go forward on some of this feasibility stuff. Let me ask this, and it might be a question for you, Ray Lynn. The Clearwater study that we originally had done with that feasibility study, it was a $35,000 expense, correct?
That's correct.
And the report was not complete, correct? Or was not current? What was the condition of that report? Can you tell us?
The report and the third time was complete, and when it was finally done, it was complete, but not in the timing that we had requested, because we were looking for something that was expedited, and in that first report that you guys did receive, there was errors, and so
Errors and omissions?
essentially, yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that I recall was that they had
Yeah.
initially not included, they had included tax exempt properties
Correct.
in the study, yeah. That's
Correct.
my memory.
So then they represented to us, and that amount went from 25,000 to a discounted 25,000, 35,000 to 25,000, is that right?
The total amount that we did pay Clearwater was 25, yes.
And they said that they were going to complete the report, because the report that they gave to us as an update, didn't that have error and omissions in it as well?
The final report did not, but was not usable because the new property tax year the calendar year had expired, and so we could not use that feasibility study
Okay.
again.
Okay, so we couldn't, we spent 25,000 on that report, but we couldn't use it.
That is
Is
correct.
that right? Okay. How, when we move forward with this feasibility study, tell us a little bit about the process of how we're gonna select somebody, if you would, Mark.
Sure, I'll do my best. I
Yeah.
mean, we're in sort of reaction mode still at this point.
Right.
From constructing a feasibility study, this is as simple as it gets. And so I don't think we're anywhere in the neighborhood of that, that Clearwater had done a fairly large downtown area with, as I recall, dozens of parcels. Here, we're talking about essentially one.
Right.
And so the hope is that we would be able to put this in front of somebody that's like Cushing Terrell, somebody who's done these feasibility studies before, and say, the project, very simple, the size is simple, the tax numbers should be fairly simple.
Yeah.
Calculating that revenue, the increment revenue should be fairly simple. So we're not anywhere in the ballpark, I think, of the $25,000 to $35,000 range. And so with that in mind, I think, we'll start talking to folks who have done it before, people we have a relationship with.
Yeah.
Proceed in that fashion to solicit the service.
So with that in mind, and the history of what we've been doing here, with this one parcel, what do you think the price, what do you think the cost of something like that's gonna be? I mean, just from going off prior experiences.
When I recommended Jem a not to exceed number, it would not to exceed $5,000. I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
That's the number I had in mind too,
Yeah.
but
Okay, so let me ask this. What would it cost to insure a report like that for one parcel? What would the insurance part of that? Because I know there's insurance on it to insure a report. Does anybody know what that might be?
I'm actually not sure what you mean by the insurance.
Well, there's got to be some sort of indemnity or some sort of insurance on that report that they're going to issue, that they're going to stand behind?
Generally, I think there's not. I don't remember that as being part of the other feasibility studies we've done. I know, Raylan, you've done them. I don't think that was a part of the Clearwater one. There oftentimes is an indemnity provision, right? But that deals with more, if the contractor creates a liability that could come back on the agency, then they have the obligation to indemnify. And sometimes there's some general commercial liability insurance requirements that are in place. I'm sure I remember that.
Yeah.
But in terms of like an insurance policy to guarantee the accuracy of the results, that's not been a requirement. I'm not even sure if that's an insurance product that's available.
Okay, so I just, the research that I've done, I think there's got to be a $2,000 to $3,000, maybe $4,000 insurance policy on that feasibility study. So I just thought maybe you guys would know a little bit more about that.
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
So I think $5,000, is our budget. I think that's kind of a target that I don't know how we would get it in there. If insurance, which I'm pretty sure insurance is required on that report, say it's $2,500. That's half the cost of the report.
I can only say, like, we have our statute and our code, like, we require certain amounts when we set up vendors. And so I don't know what that costs to the vendor.
Yeah.
But they do pass that along when they name, Urban Renewal or City of Caldwell as the additional insured. I think that's a conversation when we do select a vendor.
Yeah.
Like what that cost is gonna be, but I cannot say I
Right.
don't know what that cost
Yeah.
is.
So, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to hold this up, but I'd also like to know that we're kind of privy to what the report's going to be, because I think trying to find somebody at $5,000 to put together a one parcel report, I think that's a stretch in today's time. So, maybe we could be, updated and something be given to us on that.
Sure, yeah, we can,
However the commissioners want to proceed on that is fine. I don't think we want to wait another month.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
So
I agree.
if that means a special meeting, we can try to accommodate that, Mr. Chairman. if-
yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr.
So, yeah, a couple things. First of all, yeah, not to exceed 5,000 is fine. We can add that to the motion. And I want to be very specific. It's only for this one here. I think we should go out and get a list of vendors and things in the future. We've already held up Mr. Jenke for quite some time. The insurance, I believe that Mr. Moore is talking about is probably included in whatever estimate they give. But I'm not 100% either within that price, but if it's more than 5,000, I guess we can come back, but I just don't want to delay it for his project alone because we've delayed this specific thing for so long. Future projects, absolutely, that require much more land, that are going to be many more thousands of dollars to do an impact study, that absolutely, those should go out and we should consider those very closely.
Mr. Allgood.
Yeah, Mr. Hilty, I don't know that I'm comfortable with putting a $5,000 limit on it because we just may not get there. Is this a situation where when you do find a vendor and whatever that price is, that it's legal for you to communicate with us by email and we give a yes or no rather than calling another public meeting, or is that not legal?
No, we would need to have it at an open meeting.
You'd have to,
Now,
okay.
certainly, you could participate by video, but
Right,
we would have
but
to have a meeting
we
here.
can't, I was just trying to make it go quickly.
Understood. No, it would have to be an open meeting. And the public could attend and notice and that kind of thing. Now, that could be done on, 48 hours notice. And so it could be done relatively quickly, provided that there's availability. And then if you can call in. You don't even have to have a video connection. So
Okay,
we can.
yeah, and I would just, for time, is the only thing I was.
Understood.
Mr. Cole.
Yeah, so can we just raise that amount?
Certainly, yeah.
Why wouldn't we want to do that?
You want to amend your motion?
I don't mind commenting on that. One, in my original motion, I didn't know 5,000 was the mark, but if that was going to appease to help move it forward, I was good with that. If we want to raise that up some, I think also, Mr. Chair, aren't you discussing having a special meeting in a couple weeks, but that would even delay it a couple weeks, meaning that as long as we noticed it, if you got the information tomorrow and we noticed it, and we could all come in. Hopefully, Councilor Allgood is going to get our IT system fixed a little better, but if we, I don't think there'll be any presentations. I mean, it would just, the audio would work. And again, I'm only talking about this project specifically. I think we do need a good list of vendors that are qualified, and however we research that data, I don't think we need to go into that here tonight, but certainly if we want to raise that price or just not put any price on it, just keep the original motion and let the chair come back and say, yeah, this is a crazy amount, or it's just fine. Get the answer for Commissioner Moore on the insurance. If that's the better way, that it would, if it suffices that we don't put a price on it at all, and that Mr. Chair would have to call a special meeting for all of us to say yes or no as soon as he has the information available. That would only delay it 48 hours from when he has the information. Is that the one? I see some head nods. So whatever motion I just made, no, I'll read, so do I need to withdraw the first motion or just add to it? Just amend it?
Yeah, just amend it.
So to amend that motion, then, we won't automatically go with Cushing and Terrell. We'll still authorize the chair to negotiate with whoever he chooses. It sounds like it's going to be Cushing and Terrell with a future agenda item meeting or special meeting to follow up with the information that he provides and a vote shortly thereafter that meeting, or within that meeting.
Pretty well
That's
done.
pretty clear.
I don't know, was that as clear as mud?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll repeat my second for that.
Okay. Mr. Moore?
I would think that, you know, when we had the issue with the Clearwater report, we talked about this same thing that Councilman Doty just said. We were going to get some vendors together, and we were going to have this stuff ready for future use of an existing URA. So I think we're forgetting what we should have did in the past with that Clearwater report, and get some vendors going so that legal could, you know, put it out there, and gosh, in 2 weeks we have a number, or we have a bid, or we have somebody that comes forward. So I think something needs to be put together as an action item going forward of a list of vendors. But I would agree with what the motion is here with
Okay.
Councilman Doty, and the second with Councilman Allgood.
Mr. Colt, did you have another comment?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Doty and second by Mr. Allgood. Would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Doty?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Allgood?
Yes.
Commissioner Cole?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick?
Yes.
Very good. Takes us to our first item of new business. That's discussion and direction to staff concerning funding options for infrastructure improvements in our favorite new north area. Mr. Hilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think starting, well, it's been several weeks ago now, there was an effort on the staff level part, and I think the commissioners were aware of it, to kind of figure out how to get some initial projects going in the north area. And I'm not talking about developers coming in, I'm talking about infrastructure development where there would be road building, curb gutter, sidewalk, landscaping potentially, but certainly the extension of water and sewer. The kinds of things that Mr. Gotti's talking about make his property more marketable to those folks that are interested in developing in Caldwell. That's a heavy lift, right? Those are expensive improvements. The agency does not have significant funds in the north area due to, there hasn't been that development out there. And so we had, probably a month ago, 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting with Michael Keith at Zion's Bank about how we would do that. Can we float some bonds at this point and use the bond revenue to build some infrastructure? And the answer was a pretty solid no. I mean, he was very helpful, he's very knowledgeable, but he said you don't have the kind of increment generated now that can satisfy a lender on those bonds. That led to a discussion about our TIF agreements, which of course we had one with District 21 that went well. The problem with those TIF agreements is, as I think you're aware, the revenue stream for reimbursing those expenses is tax increment. And so if you move along, the concern was if you move along with tax increment financing, as you do that, you're tying up that increment for those specific projects, and you may be even further delayed in when you can get to the point where you could bond. And so you really are unable as an agency, certainly in the foreseeable future, and I guess by that I would think maybe the 5 to 10 year range, of developing sufficient increment that you can then pay for through bonding or otherwise, just accumulated increment, major projects. And of course, most of us familiar with the east area, at the end of its life, it had so much growth and there was so much increment that it was basically on a cash basis. But that was not always the case there. And so that was what we were wrestling with as staff. How do we find the financing necessary to build the infrastructure that will really attract those users? They will then start putting in improvements. The increment then is generated, and we get this thing rolling, right? That was the idea. And there was difficulty with bonding because the increment's not there now, and there was difficulty with the TIF agreements, potentially. It's still a tool that could be used, but the difficulty was if we continue to tie up that increment, then the only revenue source, the only funding source we're ever going to have are those new companies coming in, and then they, of course, have the promise of being reimbursed, which is a nice incentive. But it might not be the only incentive we want to be able to offer out there. So we had then subsequently a video conference with John McDevitt, an attorney in Boise who specializes as bond counsel. And some of you on the city council have been through this with Fire Station, but he's really the one that deals with the high finance, the tax issues, the bond placement, those types of things that are required under the code when bonds are issued. And he's generally an expert in municipal finance. And we started talking to him about, what to do with this situation. And there were a couple ideas that came out of that were, I think, very helpful that I want to bring you up to speed on. This is agendized as an action item, and I think probably we're just looking for some direction from commissioners, simply that we're headed in the right direction if one of these things is appealing to you. The first thing he said was the concern about the TIF agreement is a real problem, and that tying up all of your increment as you go along can kind of tie your hands down the road with respect to other financing options. What he recommended was, as we draft those TIF agreements, that we include enough, and we haven't fully vetted this, but flexibility so that potentially you would be able to terminate those TIF agreements by paying them off early if your revenue was there, and then you'd free up that increment to service the bonds. And then the bond revenue would at some point go back to pay off those improvements that had already been constructed. And so as long as there's an option for the agency to do that, it's at least going to give you some flexibility rather than feeling like your hands are tied on your increment level. So we're going to be looking at that. We've got a TIF agreement with Maverick that we're working on, and so it'll have some provisions like that in it. More interesting, maybe, I thought, was there are potentially a couple of ways for the agency to do some major things out there. One of them is what he referred to as an LID-backed bond. An LID is a local improvement district. It would be established through the city because the city has the LID authority. It applies within the city limits, and so annexation is going to be a little bit of an issue on this. But an LID is a local improvement district, and the way that it works is the city sets up through ordinance an area where there's going to be specific improvements. Those improvements benefit the adjoining properties. And the easiest way to think about it is you go from a gravel street to a paved street. That's an LID that happens in cities around that, like Caldwell, have some old city streets that were never paved. The city puts this together. The city constructs the project. The city pays for the project typically, although bonding is available with LIDs. And then it's the homeowners that are assessed for the LID that pay the property, pay with their property taxes, pay off the LID amount that was used for the improvement. So anyway, it's basically a statutory way of passing along the cost of the improvement to the benefited property. So the way it would work, for example, okay, in the map that Mr. Gotti showed you, he would agree to pay for all of those improvements on his property, and then we could get bonds to build them. Now, whether he actually had to pay them or not would depend on what happened after they were built. So if all of that subdivision was built out in the near term and all of a sudden there's increment available to satisfy those bonds, that would happen, and the owner would never have to actually pay those LID expenses, or wouldn't have to pay all of them. But we get the lending because the lenders understand that if that didn't happen and there wasn't increment there, then it was the property owners who'd have to step up and satisfy the bonds under the LID. Not as attractive as just building the roads with no hook into the property owners, but it is an option. It's an option that we could go with now, because I think they were saying, both of them I think were saying, that LID-backed bonds could be available now because it very much reduces or eliminates the risk on the lender. That's something to think about. So the way the LID would work is that the city would have to create an area, identify the projects. It would be infrastructure projects. and then go about getting that done and selling the bonds would then have this provision that says, again, this is where Mr. McDevitt would be needing to answer the detailed questions. But essentially, there would be a provision where the agency would start to pay off those bonds once that increment was there. So very useful tool if we're sure that somebody is coming and we're sure that that increment is going to be there in a significant amount. So that was one option for some bonding in the near term. The second option was to essentially borrow the money from the city. And the way that that would work is the city would use funds that it has available in the street fund, the water fund, and the sewer fund. And of course, those funds exist in part for the extension of those utilities. But it was like the discussion with Rob and Miguel up here, that money has to be citywide, right? It's prioritized for different projects, and whether or not it's appropriate for the city to be spending the money in that area is something that's going to have to be determined by the city on a priority basis. The benefit for the city in making that available is that the city could be then reimbursed by the agency through tax increment as it comes in. It would essentially be a bonding arrangement where the city would provide the capital from its fund balances in those enterprise funds, build a project, and then the city would be reimbursing or paying off those bonds, is probably a better way to put it, through increment generated. Either one of those last two issues, whether it's an LID-backed bond or we have some financial arrangement with the city, obviously involves the city. The city's going to have to agree to partner with the agency on that funding mechanism. But it's probably, the way we see it, it's probably the only way for the agency to do something sort of significant out there in the foreseeable future. I think we came away as staff excited about what we were hearing because there were some possibilities there. Whether it works is going to be dependent on what the level of interest that the city has. But we think the next step is to meet as staff and try to figure out what would a concept plan look like? Where would it be built? What would be the extent of it? With prioritizing the expenditure of those funds on areas where we were more confident that there would be rapid development, because that's what's important for generating the tax increment revenue. But sometime in the next month, we would try to put all that together and come back with a concept plan that could be shared with the agency, and ultimately, of course, if the commissioners are on board with it, could be shared with the city council to see if that's something that could be done. So there is a potential for it, certainly to benefit the area, to benefit the agency, to incentivize people to relocate there, to have some infrastructure in place. I think it through it in my head, it seems like an opportunity for the city to get some infrastructure built with the prospect of having that expenditure reimbursed, which would typically not be the case with those enterprise funds. So anyway, we're still sort of at that 30,000 foot view. I will do my best to answer your questions, but that's sort of what we've learned in the last month.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Doty.
Mr. Chair, just some comments. Yeah, clearly, I'm not prepared to make that decision tonight. I would like it to see it move forward, get some input from Ray Lynn and the liabilities, the city versus the developer right. Certainly, if it's a benefit to the city in the end, then that's great, and we should consider that. But we're going to need to see cost and liability and see where clearly our financial folks are comfortable, as well as where Mr. McDonald is comfortable too. So I think more research and having their opinion look at that would greatly benefit a decision.
Thank you, Mr. Doty. Mr. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, question for Mr. Hilty. So the local LID, so that would be basically a loan that the developer would carry, correct? I mean, they're ultimately responsible for that repayment.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What's the interest rate on that? Just ballpark. I mean, if historical.
So I'm going to qualify it a little bit because depending on, well, depending on how you structure it, it's either a tax exempt bond or it's not, and that of course makes a difference on the interest rate. I want to say that historically, the interest rate on that has been in the 4 to 5 range. I don't know if that's current. But that, historically, that's what we've seen for tax exempt bonds because they're very attractive investments for high-income people. I know the interest rate market is high right now, so that probably makes a difference.
Yeah. And if and I've seen an LID, you know, in Valley County, in some of that Tamarack area development where they're taking those dirt roads and turning them into paved and putting some sidewalks in some of those areas, or curbs and gutters without a sidewalk. And some of those rates were anywhere from 10 to 17%. And I'm kind of curious on that, if anybody has heard, like Ray Lynn has.
So for city-funded LIDs, we currently don't bond out for those, and so we charge between 3.5% and 5% on those. They're pretty minimal. So it is one, and I know that when we did go to bond with the fire station, we're paying less than 3.5% on the bond. So,
Okay, so let's just say nobody moves into that area and it sits dormant for 5-10 years. What the interest rate on that to the developer, to whoever's carrying it at the end that's going to have to service that debt, what rate does that become to them? 3 to 5%, or is there a margin in there? Just curious to see what they're getting into, so I know.
And this, I knew you were going to ask me the financing questions, and this is why the city hires bond counsel, so I'll do my best.
Yeah.
But actually, it'd be the city, I think, carrying the bonds, because they're the ones that have the LID authority. It's just that they would be collecting the money as an assessment on the property owner. And there would be some administration fee, but that would be built into the principal. I don't think it's an interest component.
Yeah.
So whatever the interest rate that the city gets based on market would be the interest rate, then it would be amortized. So there would be payments in year one.
Yeah.
It's a tool that would work great for a developer who knew that they were going to be having
A
people
big
come
rush
in
to everybody
and-
moving in.
Exactly, because then that increment's there and they're going to be off the hook. But that would be the risk for the property owner, is if you put that in, the property does not develop, then, you know, over a 10 or 20 year period, they're going to be repaying the bulk of that, or potentially all of it. But it's that guarantee that makes the funds available.
Yeah, I want to say that Valley County deal, when that Tamarack was going from, you know, they've renamed it a couple of different times, and it went from one development to the other, that there was a stall on that repayment of that LID. And some of the people that were on the hook for that, some of the property owners weren't too happy about what their initial and current rate was going to be once they had to step and service that debt. So I guess I'd just like to learn a little bit more about the ins and outs of that. The second question I have, if the city carries that note, if the city carries the note for that development, what's the rate on that? I mean, what's the cost to the city on that? Just ballparking numbers, not saying we have exacts, but what does that entail to the city if they carry $3 million of a note over 10 years?
So when we establish an LID, we establish it with an interest rate, and so it's really like the cost to the city is the loss on the present value, I guess. That would be the cost to the city, and then administrative costs on top of that. But I will say, like, I think this is going to be a joint effort if we do this, and it is, I think, something that would have to have discussions where is the city's cost covered, but not, we don't ever look to make money, so it's just covering costs.
Right, yeah, we want to get to a break-even point, but we don't want to lose money, right?
Yeah. So.
I'd be interested to see how that works, how that all examples out. I think that's my only questions I have on that financing.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? Mr. Allgood?
Yeah, your memory's probably a lot better than mine, but when we did the East Urban Renewal area, that started off slowly, and we built up increments slowly, and there was a very long period of time where we kind of had a run-up. In this situation, our belief is it's going to go from 0 to 60 as soon as it moves into city, you know, it becomes into the city. We believe it's going to take off substantially. So if we do one of these plans like you're talking about, a LID or whatever, would it encompass all of the property involved in this URA or just specific site at a time? With each developer saying, yes, I'm on board, or no, I'm not on board? What does that look like?
So the LID would start with a geographic footprint, and it would be the property owners inside that footprint. And the way that it would be decided under the statute is whether or not those properties were benefited by the project. And so you know, clearly if you have an improved frontage, right, along your property, you're benefited from that. Same with the water and sewer extension. If there was a bridge across the canal, okay, then you could probably look north and make an argument that some of those properties, you know, up along Highway 44 or Farmway were also benefited from that project. Because now, even if they build their own road infrastructure, the bridge component's there. And so one of the things that the city does when crafting an LID is try to determine which properties are benefited, and different properties may be benefited on a different basis. But does that answer your question? But it would only be within the district, right? So you couldn't,
Yes.
you'd have to make all those decisions when you were forming it.
But like this developer that we're discussing here tonight, 115 acres or something like that? I don't remember the size. So they would be the discussion, and maybe any surrounding parcels that would benefit from their, but everything else in the North Urban Renewal District would not be included unless some new developer came in and said, I want to do the same process on a different parcel?
Generally, yeah,
Generally.
yes. I mean, yeah, I think the answer is yes. The reason I'm hesitating is because of that notion that in that initial one, you would be looking at for benefited properties, and depending on what your project was and its ability to serve, you know, other properties that maybe weren't all owned by the same developer or weren't only the spot where the roads were built, right? That would require at least some thought. Generally speaking, your concept is right. It would be limited to this certain area, and then there would be the opportunity to do another one. But again, I think the property needs to be annexed into the city for that to really be a viable option.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, question for you. So we had a gentleman here that was talking about a project up by the domes, and I think there was some discussion about Idaho Housing Authority gap financing. How would gap financing help or not help this developer in this situation? And I know the second part of this, I know we talked about having some sort of a workshop about this kind of financing to maybe enable these investors that are coming forward and signing on the dotted line and putting their neck out, how we could help enable. And I think this gap financing, maybe that's something that we look at. Maybe that's something we have a workshop on, but I definitely would like to know about it because it was a very similar situation to this, I think, where we were looking to have some roads or bridge or something looked at.
Raylan, do you want to speak to that?
So Idaho Housing and Finance deals specifically, especially when they're giving like gap financing. I know with the domes, it was for low and moderate income housing. And so I think it does descend on the type of project that's happening. And it's not something that's like automatically something that we can apply for or be eligible for. I think Stephen, Mr. Jenkins, works with developers on all types of opportunities and funding opportunities. You know, we've done a lot of research on different opportunities with Stephen that are accessible by state law to see if we can work with developers on those. Sometimes it's just not having enough staff to be eligible to do that or be able to set that up. Sometimes it's just something that all of the, I forget what they're called, but it's something through the Commerce Office at the state where all of the opportunities are already taken across the state, and we just don't have that opportunity to take advantage of that opportunity. So, but Mr. Jenkins does work with developers to look at all funding opportunities and really investment types. And I know I talked to him a lot about different options and things that I see through like the small business and association and stuff like that, so.
Could that be a topic we could have some discussion on? I think in this world of financing and trying to put these projects together, it's,
Yeah,
everything
our
would help.
direction on this particular action
Thank
item
you.
is to either make a decision to ask them to go and develop a concept plan to bring back and flesh out a little bit more completely, give us some ideas about what we're staring into. Is that our intent tonight? Say, bring back a concept? And if GAP figures into that in any way, shape, form, or regard, bring that as a point of information too.
Got it.
Are we good with that? Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Brings us to our second action item, to consider invoices for payment.
Good evening. So what we have for invoices this month, 18,900 for the April economic development contributions, 6,800 for the March attorney services, $436,532.50 for project 12, and $7,236.36 for project 17, which also includes a public notice. Total of $469,468.86.
Any questions for Ray Lynn? Mr. Allgood?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. I'll just make a comment because I love this particular soapbox. But I asked Rochelle Castleberry to go through and see what Urban Renewal had contributed over the last 8 years to the Ustick Road widening project, because that was something that would have come out of street funds and borne by every taxpayer. And in the last 8 years, it's been $16 million. That was paid for by URA, and we had the ability to do it. It was the right decision at the time. I'm really hoping that we can find a way forward with some of our fund balances that we helped create by funding their projects, that we can leverage some of those at least to get things moving out north. Now, would the secretary call the roll?
Commissioner Allgood,
Yes.
Commissioner Cole,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Doty,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Thank you, Raylene.
Yep. So, we have the, just the financial overview. So total cash that we have in the bank is just over 4.5 million. So it is, definitely getting reduced down. The increment this month is pretty small between the north and east, just because in these off months, we do only receive minimal funds until the larger payment in July. Our interest is still there, with $4,010 in the Banner Bank, and then almost $2,900 in the LGIP. So, yeah.
Very good. Any questions? Mr. Allgood, your light's on?
I'll turn it off.
Okay. Do we have a motion in regard to the monthly cash reconciliation report?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Warp,
I move we approve the monthly cash reconciliation report as presented.
we have a motion in favor. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, we'll give this one to Mr. Cole.
That's fine.
Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Commissioner Doty,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Allgood,
Yes.
Commissioner Cole,
Yes.
Commissioner Porter.
Yes.
So, with the project report, as you can see those updates, we have some small amounts. The project 17, the Wolf Field, I know that the last invoice that was just approved in this meeting, was part of that retainage. And so my question, for the commission on this is, as we start to see some of these additional projects complete, I know we did budget transfers in the past on this project list, to go towards the Ustick project. And so I wanted to ask if that is something that you would like to see moving forward, or just leave it as is until we see more of that USTIC project be reduced, which I believe we're gonna see a significant decrease in that within the next couple of months.
Comments?
Make a comment, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Doty?
Yes, I think leave it the way it is for now, based on the information where we decide what we're gonna do with the North District, because that may, if we go with the city route, that may help that fund. If we don't go with that, it may help in a different way. So just for now, leave it the way it is, but know that that's an option depending on what we choose for the North District.
Very good.
And we may be able to add that.
Okay. Any other comments?
I agree with Councilor Doty.
Anybody else want to agree with Councilor Doty?
I will,
Okay. Tom, you good with that? Okay. All right, thank you. And your report on a 5-year plan.
So I have been working with quite a little committee, including Commissioner Warwick, on the strategic plan. And so I just wanted to give an update on that as we start through that process. So there's 2 pages included in your packet. One is like the timeline, the one that says the step 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's kind of the timeline of where we're at and what we're going through. And then the other part is a drafting of the mission, vision, and goals. And so I wanted to just get some feedback on this mission, vision, and goals. The committee includes Commissioner Warwick and Mr. Jenkins, Ophelia, Mr. McDonald, and Scott Swanson from the airport. So it's quite a group. I am working with Scott on the SWOT analysis, and so we're going through that process right now, so.
Any questions or comments? Very good, thank you, Renee. Brings us to number 4, our economic development reports. Good evening, Ophelia. Stephen is traveling, and I think he was kind of in and out of availability this evening, is that correct?
That is correct, but I'm happy to answer any questions on his report if you have any. But if there are no questions, I'll go ahead and start my report. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the URA updates. This is in regards to 1119 South Kimball Avenue, and that's Side A, and the results. So this was due March 17th. We had over 500 reviews on OpenGov. It was emailed to over 40 developers, brokers. The results of the RFP were 0 that came through. I'm going to go ahead and read the feedback. Company 1, without naming the companies, Company 1 mentioned that the parking was too limited for their plans for that site. Company 2 stated the following: "It was great meeting you both and hearing the passion and ambition you both have for Caldwell. I am so appreciative of the high esteem you both share for ABC," and I'm not naming the company, that's why I'm calling it ABC. "I did take some time to go over this opportunity with the team today. They got pretty fired up, so we'll run some numbers on our end and see if it makes sense for us to make the push for a submission deadline." And unfortunately, they didn't have the time to submit, but they're excited to work with us in the future if there's other opportunities. Company 3, they are currently working with a developer in our downtown already, so they wanted to move in that direction. Company 4 stated the following: "Thank you so much for sending me a copy of the RFP for the law on Arthur and Kimball. While we have been excited about the potential for a project downtown, one of our partners informed us that they no longer have the ability to meaningfully contribute. We will not be pursuing our project at this time." Company 5 stated the following: "Thank you for sending this information. We have discussed internally as a team. Unfortunately, given the number of commitments in the hopper at the moment, we will need to pass on pursuing this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to work with you both in the city of Caldwell, and we look forward to working with you on further development opportunities moving forward." Company 6 said that at this moment, they have 3 concepts that they're at full capacity and are not able to move forward in adding additional projects to their list. So I stand with any questions in regards to that RFP.
Mr. Doty?
Just one follow-up, and maybe Mr. Hilton will have to ask, but since the RFP's gone out and closed, if someone comes along and just says, hey, I've got an idea for that lot, will it need to go back out to RFP, or can we accept an idea if any of these companies comes along and says, now we're good now?
No, I think you'd have to go back out to an RFP.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, question, Ophelia. So tell me what do the neighbors down there think of that area turning into a spot URA kind of deal? What's the consensus down there? Because there's some people that are kind of holding on to some properties there that it looks like they should be, before we do anything, they should be approached and maybe talked to about making that just a little bit bigger area. I don't know. But tell me what it is, what's going on down there.
Yeah, so in regards to that specific site, I know that some of these folks that did share the interest, they were also very interested in working with the parcels adjacent to them. So there was that interest in regards to the feedback from the businesses. They were very excited to see a neighbor come in for the reasons of more traffic in that area, and hopefully that traffic would turn into their customers. So that's the sentiment that I've heard from the businesses, from these folks that were looking at that property. Now, we wish, that parcel was an entire parcel rather than that smaller parcel. We were able to show some of these folks just so they can get some ideas going what the size of the parcel was, right? So this was a little bit bigger than what Vern's site is. So Vern's is at 0.09, this was 0.10. So we talked a lot about building up that parcel. So I just think they needed a little bit more time. Again, we gave it a 30-day notice, and I think if we were to go specifically with Company 2, like they've mentioned here, they wish they had more time to submit for that. We were able to get on their calendars. They're just a very busy a company, and they had just opened up a new location in the Ada County area, and so they just needed a little bit more time for that.
Mr. Chairman, I got another question. So what would be the result of listing that with a real estate agent and asking somebody to purchase it, putting a for sale sign on it?
I would say the disadvantage to doing that would be that you wouldn't necessarily have a say into those projects.
Right.
I'll give you a good example of the couple properties that we auction off in the downtown. So we have one in the alley. That project, I think is 125,000. We don't necessarily have a timeline of development. So that can sit for years and years without being developed. And so I think the intent of URA is to redevelop so we can put that back in the tax rolls. And then we had another property off of Albany and Kimball, the other corner. And again, there's just no timeline for development. So I think that those are definitely the disadvantages of those putting out that through a broker.
I think before we do a spot URA in that area, I think there needs to be a workshop on that area. I think all options need to be looked at, whether it's listed. I mean, I know if we put it out for sale, but we don't have a lot of control, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it could go both ways, but I think it might give us an opportunity or two.
Yeah, we can
Yes.
definitely discuss that.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doty?
I just want to be clear, it's already in URA,
Yeah, it's
correct?
already-
Okay,
We don't need to create anything.
right, so it's already in URA, but the other information may be beneficial, but it's already in a URA.
I
so.
thought that was a spot. No?
No, in order for us to put that through RFP, it went through council, then,
Yeah.
yep, so it's in a URA.
Okay.
Yep. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to URA downtown incentives. This was something that our chair had asked that I look into, and I think I've shared some of these incentives with a couple of you. And I did my research in regards to some of the cities within Canyon County so that we can get a better understanding of what we're competing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the city of Nampa. They have a very robust Downtown Nampa incentive, and this is through the Nampa Development Corporation, which is their urban renewal agency. They have a restaurant incentive. A little bit about the restaurant incentive is to incentivize creation of new jobs, attract new food-related establishments, and create economic growth. And this applies to this grant specifically to reimburse up to 50% of certain projects. And I'll list off those projects here in a minute, just so you can kind of get a better understanding of what that looks like. So for the restaurant incentives, they have eligibility criteria as our property owners of their representative are eligible, as well as business tenants with written approval of the building owner. And they talk about these being very specific to establishments that are not a chain related, and eligible project costs that are included but not limited to grease traps, hoods. And I did connect with one of our local downtown business, a restaurant, this morning, just to kind of get a better understanding of the cost to build out their space. And I won't name who this business is, but they shared with me that per linear foot to get a hood, because this is covered under that incentive in Nampa, it's $5 a foot. Their hood was $185,000. That was the cost of their hood. So this is an eligible expense that's covered by the Downtown Restaurant Incentive Program in Nampa. They also cover HVAC, ADA improvements, plumbing. They also cover City of Nampa permitting fees, building permit fees, domestic water-based fees, domestic water fire flow fees, CE4 collection system fees, CE4 wastewater fees, other eligible expenses as required by code and approved by NDC, plan review fees, impact fees, subcontractor permit fees, tenant improvement fees. So I did also ask this business, how much were their permit so far with the city of Caldwell? They said well over 60,000, and that included the impact fees, plan reviews, building permit fee. So just to kind of give you an idea of what we're competing against. So when individuals are looking to maybe open up their second concept, expand into Canyon County, if they're looking at Caldwell or Nampa, these programs can be very enticing to them. So those were some of what their restaurant incentives cover. They also have a facade improvement grant. This program was established to support and encourage small business to reinvest in their downtown historic district. Again, all these are urban renewals specifically for their downtown. Reimbursing up to 50% of eligible costs, and I'll just go over those facade improvement, what that covers. So eligible improvements are paint, new or refurbishment of existing awnings, new signs and or replacement, retrofit or restoration of legacy signs, sign removal. And I know that we have a downtown business that has an old sign, and I know we've asked, could that potentially be taken down? And there's just an expense to that. Window and or door upgrade. You guys have seen some of these buildings in our community. One specific is right along the creek, and it's boarded up. So I think that if we had some of these incentives, maybe we can incentivize them to do those improvements. Lighting, replacement of or refurnished of non-structural material features such as parapets and similar architectural features, rehabilitation of historic features. So those are some of the incentives. The last incentive that they have is the sidewalk incentive improvement. And this incentive provides $50,000 towards sidewalk improvements that meet City of Nampa streetscape design standards. For every $500,000 invested in the adjacent property, NDC will reimburse up to $50,000, maximum of $100,000 reimbursement, and a $1 million investment. So those were the City of Nampa's incentives for the downtown. I did connect with the City of Middleton, which is another, I believe their population is roughly 13,000. They do have a downtown urban renewal district. The individual that I spoke with, she's a planner there. They don't have economic development, so we talked a little bit about what that could look like for the City of Middleton if they were to bring economic development, and share with her a little bit about the work that we do here in Caldwell. They currently do not have any incentives, and they also have this to do on their to-do list to look and research what other cities are doing. So after my research, I'll probably send that to her so she doesn't have to do that legwork. But, so Middleton doesn't have any incentives, but they are looking at what others are doing. I wasn't able to connect with the City of Star. They have a portion that is part of the Canyon County. The only thing that I found on their site was their implementation of their Riverfront Center area, and they don't necessarily have any funding mechanism. They have a list of potential funding mechanisms that they are potentially going to consider, is what I found on their website. And they have a CID, which is a Community Infrastructure District. They have a Development Impact Fee, which is a DIF, Local Improvement District, LID, an Urban Renewal Agency, Business Improvement District, a BID, and that is it. And again, they go back to this potentially help to help build their Riverfront Center area. So that was what I found through my research in regards to what our other neighbors are doing to incentivize redevelopment and businesses into their community. So I'll stand
Thank
for
you,
any
Ophelia.
questions.
Mr. Allgood, you have a question?
Not a question for Ophelia. Going back to the Kimball Arthur property, I don't think Mr. Moore is very far off base in saying putting a for sale sign on it. We have had repeated RFPs that have failed on that property for years and years and years. And to keep trying to do that over and over, because the property that the Urban Renewal Agency owns is tiny. The gentleman that owns the property next to it has probably about an equal size, but that's privately owned property.
Correct.
Which we have no control over with already. So I'm kind of agreeing with Mr. Moore that maybe we should go a different direction and just finish with that piece of property so that it's not something the URA continues to deal with. And then secondly, following that, since we do have another failed RFP on that piece of land, I would like to see us partner with the gentleman that owns the property next to it and do some kind of landscaping or improvement. It's just an ugly dirt lot in the middle of downtown for years, and it's our responsibility. And I would like to see us do something to improve that. If there's going to be an interim while we still own this piece of property, we need to do something to make it look better. And if we could partner with the gentleman next door to do something similar so that the property is equal. I just feel like it's time for a change on that corner, because right now it's very unsightly. There's equipment stored on it, and
It's a mud hole.
yeah, exactly.
And I think as Amano opens, I think that there's going to be a lot more traffic there, and hopefully, again, more interest in that corner.
Yeah, we wouldn't want those people to get mud on their shoes coming across the street there, because there's mud through those winter months.
Oh, that's terrible.
All through there.
Mr. Hilty, what would the steps be?
Sure,
Would you consider this?
Mr. Chairman, this, as the commissioners, as you discuss this and think about selling that property, this is a detail, but one that I wanted to bring up. The code restricts the agency on the way in which it divests itself of property. And it says, basically, the RFP process is the standard that's authorized in code. You can expand outside of that, provided that whatever you're doing allows for competitive type bids or acquisitions or whatever for the property. You can do that. But we would need to pass a resolution, probably have, a marketing period where the agent would receive, competing offers, that kind of thing. So anyway, we have to jump through a hoop there. We can get there, but just want to make sure that the commissioners are aware. We'll probably have to pass a resolution and outline a process that is code compliant if we're just going to put a sign on it.
Did you have another comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So Ophelia, thank you for sharing those incentives that NAMPA does and the investigations out in Middleton. I know they created a URA down there, and they've got a few restaurants, chain restaurants that have came in there, and it's kind of nice. I visit them.
Yep.
I think it's a change, but I think it's good to know what our neighbors are doing, so thank you for sharing that. On a side note, this question for you and the chairman, we have updated reports here on current developments or projects. Could we get an updated report monthly on, and just thinking out loud here, on existing properties that the URA owns that are sitting vacant? You know, I think like the old Bennett machine over here, I don't even know how many we have that are sitting there. I'd like to see what we have going on those and see a report on those. Is that possible to do?
Yeah, that's possible. There'll be a short list. That's
Off the
possible.
top of your head right now, if you had to guess, how many properties do you think there are?
For URA specifically, we have this site, which is Kimball, and then that's the only one that we have under URA. The 516, is that still under URA, Mark? The Bennett machine, or is that gone back to the city?
No, I think that's still under URA.
I think those are the only two projects,
I-
the only two dirt lots.
I already accumulated a report a couple months ago. I already have it, so I can send it to the commissioners, but there's only about 4 properties total. Actually, I think there's only 3 now. So, because yeah, there's only 3. There's the Kimball and Arthur, and then the 2 properties over here. That's
Yeah.
it.
So, Mr. Chairman and Ophelia, how hard would it be, or, I mean, just to get an update on those reports monthly of what economic interest has been out there on those properties?
Yeah, I think in regards to 516, there's been plenty of interest from groups that want to build a larger footprint, right? To your point, some may need a larger of a footprint, so I think that there's been interest in 516. We just haven't thrown it out there for RFP yet because of the parking, right? We're currently using that as a parking lot at the moment. But we are happy at your direction if you wanted to go in that direction to put it out for an RFP. I think that there is interest in that parcel.
And then just a footnote to that question really quick here, and I'll stop. I think maybe a workshop, maybe on that Kimball. I mean, I've recommended 3 or 4 workshops, and maybe we have one workshop where we can get them all completed and kind of go over some of these issues of financing, current projects, and maybe discuss that. Just curious to, you know, is there a way to, is it possible to have a sign put on those properties that those are current urban renewal owned properties as people drive by or walk by to look at? Because they're out of sight, out of mind with me right now, and I couldn't even tell you, and I should know what properties are out there as a commissioner, a committee person, I should know.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. In Boise, CCDC does have a placard with whatever property they're managing, what have you, so we can certainly do that. I know that when the Tilliant project was in sort of development stages, there was the signage out there, so
Right.
we're more than happy to get signs placed.
Yeah,
in
not
your
to create a
direction.
big expanse, but just something that illustrates it.
Yeah, and we can put contact information there as well if people have interest for those projects, so yeah. I don't know, Mark, that probably needs to be an action item.
Yeah, probably is a good idea. Maybe we could look into it and bring back some, proposal for that. But, and a reminder to the commissioners too, your activity on those properties is limited since those are not currently in an urban renewal area. And so we'd have to consider a downtown area or site-specific area to do actually a project.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ophelia.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Warwick.
I think probably workshop might be a good idea, but, that Kimball and Arthur property is just so tiny, and it is so unsightly. Is it possible we could develop that a little bit and make it into a little pocket park there? Keep it in inventory until, it's gonna have to develop with the rest of that block. There's just gotta be somebody that comes along and wants to buy the balance of the properties from, can't remember his name, but the gentleman that owns those. But, you know, we could do our part in making that a little prettier, especially as a prime location. Everybody that goes to the plaza sees that, and why not just have a little grass and some little benches there, at least on our part? And then maybe that would put a little pressure on him to do something with his part if he's not going to develop it.
Gosh, they parked that heister right there with the forks. That looked really good for months.
Yeah.
Right there. I don't know why it was parked there, and that was a mud hole.
Thank you for that suggestion, Julie. Brings us to our attorney reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We already talked about my first report there, the Lee Jenke site, and the feasibility study. I think you've got a meeting with Cushing Terrell Wednesday, so hopefully we'll be moving on that quickly. Next steps on the potential Caldwell, I guess we call it city center, where we've talked about some kind of footprint for a new urban renewal area north of the railroad tracks. I know there's been discussions going on, Mr. Chairman, that I haven't been involved in, you know, really settling on a footprint for the kind of the boundaries of that area would be the next sort of step in the process. And then once that's established, we can sort of move past the conceptual discussion, you know, toward you know, feasibility study, that kind of thing. And I know there might be some push and pull on how that discussion progresses. I think I would just say to keep in mind, we're in April. We would really need to have that established, that footprint established probably by June in order to get the area created by the end of the year. So again, not to put pressure on it, but just to make sure that as those discussions progress, that's the next thing that's needed. And then if it comes too late in the year, it's hard to get it done, you know, during the calendar year. So, and then we get into this position we were in with Mr. Jenke's, where you've got to wait for that additional tax information before you can start the feasibility study. So I don't really have an update on that. I don't know if you've got something you want to share, if that's still in
Yeah, I'd like
process.
to suggest, and I've talked to a couple of folks about this, we have a special meeting on the 24th to discuss the boundary. I mean, we've been talking about this for several years, but in light of current events and things that are happening, maybe create an area that's more focused on the slum and blight designation that we have from 2014 that's never been addressed, and then just enhance those boundaries out to some areas that don't really interfere with what could come later as a downtown district rather than a city center district. And I think if we come together on the 24th, there are a couple of things that I'd like to have us hammer out. One would be the boundaries. The second would be, let's get the feasibility study formalized and ratified. Again, what would it look like on the Kimball and Arthur site to, we just need some time to talk to people about parks. I know that the Parks Department has talked about using the little plaza area just across the stream from us as a kids park. Maybe this has potential for that too. So I think there's a significant number of things that we need to hash out, but primarily the city center footprint, and then have the strategy on the way forward. We have the 10 steps that you put together for us that are really simple, really easy to follow, but we need to put some gasoline on this fire and see how it goes. So, any comments or, Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, so I think this kind of goes right along with this, Mr. Hilty. The proposal for Caldwell Downtown Master Development that was presented to City Council, I believe in March. I have a copy of it. I have a copy if somebody else wants one. Here's an extra one. I have a copy of it. I went through it, and to back up what our chairman just said, just going through this report and looking at some of the project understanding, the scope of work, the map that's provided, just going through it from page 3 to page 7, I think it's very pertinent to what we're trying to do. But it looks like it focuses much more on a destination assessment of downtown revitalization, including plaza development planning. So, and I understand that. I just going through it, some of it, it's pretty specific to, business, site inventory and analysis, talks about a committee, planning committee, important information, tasks, stage 2, timeline, costs, and a timeline here at the end of that on page 11. It says, once an agreement and funding has been secured, the DDA team will ready to begin the work within 30 days of the final approval and a designed agreement. The entire process will likely take 6 to 8 months to complete. So if we're waiting for this to come forward, when does the clock start? When's 6 to 8 months? Is that from 2026? When does it start? And we're trying to work on a project of area that in 2014 was declared slum and blight. And then we want to go north, and we want to fix up things and get things going. I think what we ought to do is maybe say to this group and to this organization, you got 60 days to tell us when this is going to start, when they're going to review, or tell us how or what the urban renewal can be affected or not affected, or what the urban renewal could do. I think when they were initially here, there was an urban renewal that was started, and then that plan was put into effect, and I think, $250 to $300 million in tax money went towards that, expediting and getting some of those plans off to the races. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'd like to see us issue a statement to the committee that brought this forward, to the Brooks organization, give us 60 days here in a written response of what it's going to do, for considering our urban renewal, and when some of this is going to start, because I think it's pretty general at this point. I did manage to get hold of a copy of the agreement for professional services. I looked at costs, timeline, and kind of married it up to this report, this feasibility that I printed. I went through it. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty normal from what I see. What do I know? I mean, but at the same time, I think it's, for what we want to do down here, we just don't want to see this thing go into outer space and into the Milky Way. We want to try to get this thing going, I would think. Is that about right, Mr. Chairman? I would think to put this to vote, and decide to move forward, and have a discussion on it. Maybe another workshop. I don't know. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Any other comments? Thank you, Mark.
I have one more, if you'll permit me, Mr. Chairman.
I will.
I thought that I saw on the draft agenda that the county was going to come and present to you on the Fair Building project out there like other developers. But it was clearly not on the final agenda. I don't know if that got dropped or if I was seeing things. But I reached out to Diana Center today and told her that she'd be welcome to come. It was too late for her to make arrangements, which I think makes sense. I did tell her that the commissioners would expect her to be here and report monthly along with the other developers, and she was certainly open to that. And so, anyway, I wanted to let you know that that communication happened, and I think you can expect to see her participating in those project reports in the future.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Yep. Okay, thanks, everybody. This brings us to our commissioner reports. Mr. Doty, anything to share?
I think I'm good for tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You bet. Ms. Warwick? Mr. Cole? Mr. Allgood?
Done for me.
Looking forward to the Go Purple dinner, Go Purple event, May, 24th, 25th, 24th? Looking forward to that. It's always fun.
And I've just got one or two things to say. Again, special meeting, let's focus on that. We will get some maps of the area that are under consideration at this point, get those out to you for your review. Miguel Orozco, who came and spoke so well in front of us a couple of months ago, he gets a chance to speak to the city council on May 5th, and he's been given 20 minutes. And I would encourage you, if you're not here in person, to be tuned in and just hear what he has to say. I think he makes such a compelling case that he doesn't want his little brother to think that this is all there is. This is all you can expect if you live in this part of Caldwell. You know, we can do better than that. And finally, the city council, whether we come up with a gangbusters plan for this new area, ultimately it will be up to city council to pass it, ratify it, and give it its wings. So, again, if people have concerns or grievances, they can certainly approach us. We're willing to talk about them, or they can address all their emails to Mr. Doty and Mr. Allgood. But we want to see this thing happen. We want to see an improved Caldwell for everybody. And I understand the need for the economic development portion, but we can't ignore a good portion of our city, just as we chase profitability and a good standard of life for some, but not everyone. So with that, we will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Very well said, and so moved.
Thank you, Ms. Warwick. We have